Action 1. Hey guys. Tonight we're stepping into the grimy streets of 1850s London, where the air feels like it's been brewed in a cauldron of coal smoke, horse manure, and something unpleasantly human. Picture this. You're Emma, a seamstress in a soot-stained dress, standing in a narrow alley where the cobblestones glisten with questionable liquids. The smell hits you like a punch. Rotten cabbage, unwashed bodies, and a whiff of something that might have once been dinner. It's a world where surviving a day without gagging is a small victory. And honestly, you probably won't survive this without appreciating your modern shower a little more. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'm curious where you're all listening from, so drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink awake in a creaky wooden bed, the straw mattress poking through a threadbare sheet that smells faintly of sweat and mildew. You're Emma, 24, living in a tenement in Whitechapel, where the air is so thick you can almost chew it. The room is a cramped 10 by 12 feet, shared with 7 others, some family, some strangers. Their snores mingle with the distant clatter of carts outside, and you notice the walls are slick with damp, a greenish mold creeping in the corners like an uninvited guest. You shift, and the rough fabric of your shift scratches your skin. No soft cotton here, just coarse linen that hasn't seen soap in weeks. The smell of the city seeps through the cracked window, a mix of coal fires, rotting garbage, and the Thames's special brand of stink. You're used to it, but it still makes your nose wrinkle. Historians note that London in the 1850s housed over 2 million people, producing waste at a scale no city was equipped to handle. No garbage collection, no proper sewers, just piles of refuse in the streets. A quirky tidbit. Some folks believed bad smells alone caused disease, a theory called miasma that dominated medical thought. Historians still argue whether this belief delayed sanitation reforms or spurred them by making smells a public enemy. You pull yourself up, feeling the weight of the day ahead. Your stomach growls, but breakfast is a distant dream. First, you've got to navigate this shared room, where privacy is as rare as a clean handkerchief. You step over a sleeping neighbor, careful not to wake them, and grab a chipped ceramic bowl for washing. Water's scarce, hauled from a communal pump that's more rust than reliability. You splash your face, the cold biting your skin, and wonder how anyone calls this clean. The concept of hygiene here is a far cry from your modern routine. You're not reaching for a fluffy towel or scented body wash. Those are fantasies for the future. Instead, you dab at your hands with a rag that's seen better days, its edges frayed and stiff. You catch a glimpse of yourself in a cracked mirror, your face pale from too many hours indoors stitching dresses for wealthier women. A joke floats through your mind. In Victorian London, a clean face is a personality trait. You smile faintly, but the reality sinks in. Staying even remotely presentable is a battle against the city itself. Its dirt, its smells, its relentless grime. You tuck a stray hair behind your ear and brace for the day, knowing every step outside will coat you in London's special blend of filth. It's not just about survival. It's about keeping some shred of dignity in a world that seems determined to strip it away. Section 2. You step out of the tenement door, the wooden frame creaking like an old man's sigh, and immediately the chill of the fog wraps around you like a damp cloak. As Emma, you're used to this, navigating the narrow, twisting alleys where the buildings lean in as if whispering secrets. Your boots squelch on the uneven stones, slick with last night's rain, and who knows what else. The shared courtyard is a chaos of laundry lines sagging under greyish linens, children darting between them like shadows, and a few neighbours huddled around a flickering oil lamp, sharing a loaf that's probably harder than the cobblestones. You squeeze past a woman emptying a bucket, hopefully just wash water, and feel the press of bodies, the shared heat in this overcrowded space. Privacy. That's a joke for the posh folks in Mayfair. Here, everyone's business is everyone else's. The tenement buzzes with life, or at least survival. You share this building with dozens, maybe hundreds, crammed into rooms no bigger than a modern closet. Your own space, that 10 by 12-foot haven, feels like a luxury compared to some who sleep in shifts on the floor. The dampness is constant, seeping from the walls like tears, turning everything soft and musty. You remember last winter when the mold bloomed like black flowers and everyone coughed through the night. A mainstream historical fact. In mid-19th century London, over 80% of the population lived in such overcrowded conditions, fueling epidemics like cholera that claimed tens of thousands. You pause by the communal pump, cranking the handle for a trickle of brownish water into your pail. It's cold, metallic tasting, but better than nothing. A quirky tidbit? Some tenants swore by adding a dash of gin to purify it, though that might have just been an excuse for a morning tipple. You carry the pail back inside, sloshing carefully to avoid spilling on your hem. The stairs groan under your weight, narrow and steep, lit only by a sliver of light from a grimy window. Up here, the air thickens with the sense of porridge bubbling on a tiny stove, unwashed wool, and the faint tang of chamber pots not yet emptied. Your roommates stir. There's Mary, the washerwoman with calloused hands like leather. Tom, a factory lad who reeks of machine oil. And the O'Briens, a family of 4 squeezed into one corner with their bawling infant. You nod hello, exchanging weary smiles. Strangers bound by circumstance. Sharing space means sharing everything. Breaths, bugs, even dreams whispered in the dark. You set the pail down and start your morning ritual, portioning out the water like it's gold. A light joke slips into your thoughts. In this place, a private moment is rarer than a sunny day in London. Good thing umbrellas work for both rain and nosy neighbours. Historians still argue whether such overcrowding bred more resilience or despair among the working class, with some claiming it fostered tight-knit communities, while others point to rising crime rates as evidence of breakdown. You feel a mix of both as you wipe down the small table that's your workstation. Needles and thread wait there, remnants of last night's mending for a merchant's wife who'll never know the hands that fixed her gown. The damp air makes the fabric cling unpleasantly, and you shake it out, watching dust motes dance in the weak light. Outside, the clamour grows. Vendors hawking pies that might be more mystery than meat, horses clip-clopping through the muck, and the distant chime of church bells calling the faithful or the foolhardy to prayer. You glance at the window, fogged with condensation, and trace a finger through it, revealing a sliver of the grey sky. It's a small act of defiance, claiming a bit of clarity in this murky world. As Emma, your days blur into a rhythm of survival. You share not just the room, but the burdens. When Tom's ill, you all chip in for broth. When the landlord bangs for rent, whispers fly about who's short. The strangers become familiars, their habits as known as your own. Mary's snore is like a distant train. The baby's cries a nightly lullaby. You sit on the edge of your bed, mending a tear in your apron, the needle pricking your finger now and then. Blood beads up, and you suck it away. No time for fuss. The damp seeps into your bones, a constant ache, but you push it aside. Modern aside, imagine trading your cozy apartment for this, where roommate drama means arguing over who empties the slop bucket. You chuckle softly to yourself, but it's laced with sarcasm. Victorian life, where luxury is a dry pair of socks. The shared kitchen nook is a battlefield of pots and pans where you jostle for space to boil water for tea. The stove, a rusty contraption fueled by scavenged coal, belches smoke that stings your eyes. You steep the leaves, secondhand of course, strained from yesterday's brew, and sip carefully, the warmth a brief comfort against the chill. Conversations murmur around you. Complaints about wages, gossip about the Queen's latest frock, a joke about the fog being thick enough to slice and sell as pudding. Laughter ripples, lightening the heaviness, even if just for a moment. You join in, your voice soft, sharing a tale of a customer who thought lace grew on trees. It's these snippets that keep the despair at bay, turning strangers into allies in this damp, crowded existence. Pushing through the day, you head to the shared privy in the backyard, a rickety shed over a pit that's more nightmare than necessity. The line's long, folks shifting impatiently, and when your turn comes, you hold your breath against the assault. Back inside, you rinse your hands in the pail, the water already cloudy from earlier uses. The damp walls seem to close in, but you straighten your shoulders. As Emma, you've learned to carve out mental space amid the physical crush. Daydreams of open fields perhaps, or a room all your own. Another joke. They say home is where the heart is, but here it's where the hearth is, if you can afford the coal. You gather your sewing basket and prepare to venture out. The tenement's embrace is both suffocating and strangely secure. The strangers around you, with their shared struggles, remind you you're not alone in this grimy dance. The city's pulse calls, promising work, if not wonders, and you step forward, pail in hand, into the fog-shrouded street once more. Section 3. You push through the tenement's heavy door, the wood splintered and sticky under your palm, and step into the dim corridor that leads to the shared washroom, a glorified closet with a cracked basin and a mirror fogged by endless breaths. As Emma, you've timed this carefully. Mornings are a rush, but you've snagged a moment before the factory whistles summon the crowds. The air here is cooler, laced with the faint metallic tang of water that sat too long in pipes, and you set your pail down with a soft thud. Bathing isn't a luxury you indulge in daily, far from it. In this era, the idea of submerging yourself in water every sunrise would mark you as eccentric, or worse, fragile. You pour the cold liquid into the basin, watching it swirl like a reluctant river, and dip a ragged cloth in, wringing it out with a twist that sends droplets pattering like rain. The water bites at your skin as you start with your face, scrubbing gently over cheeks flushed from the chill. No steam rises here. Hot water is a dream reserved for those with servants to boil kettles downstairs. You work methodically, dabbing at your neck, your arms, focusing on the essentials, as folks call them: face, hands, underarms, and those private spots that demand discretion in a shared world. The cloth roughens your skin, but it's better than nothing, leaving a faint, clean streak amid the grime. Modern aside, imagine swapping your steamy shower playlist for this silent ritual. Talk about a cold open to the day. You feel a shiver run down your spine, not just from the temperature, but from the sheer effort it takes to feel halfway presentable. A mainstream historical fact: Victorians largely avoided full baths due to fears that excessive water weakened the body, with many limiting immersion to once a week or less, as advised by medical texts of the time. You pause to glance in the mirror, your reflection hazy, hair tousled from sleep in that crowded room. The sponge bath is your armor against the city's assault, but it's minimal, spot cleaning, like you're touching up a painting rather than truly refreshing the canvas. You lift an arm, wiping away the night sweat, and think back to Mary's tales of her employer, a middle-class lady who boasts a copper tub filled twice weekly by maids hauling buckets up flights of stairs. For you, it's this basin, this cloth, and the hope that no one notices the rest. A quirky tidbit? Some guides from the era suggested adding ammonia to the water for purification, turning your wash into a chemistry experiment that could sting more than soothe. You chuckle softly to yourself, the sound echoing in the small space. Bathing in Victorian times is like dating: mostly anticipation, minimal satisfaction, and always a risk of catching something unpleasant. Historians still argue whether these limited bathing habits stemmed more from water scarcity or entrenched medical myths, with some evidence pointing to cultural shifts only after germ theory gained traction. You continue, dipping the cloth again, the water now murkier from the dirt it's lifted. Your movements are deliberate, almost meditative, as you work down to your feet, balancing on one leg like a heron in the fog. The floorboards creak under you, cold and splintery, reminding you of the tenement's endless complaints. Callbacks to that damp room upstairs. The mold in the corners seems to follow you here, a persistent shadow on the walls. You rinse the cloth, squeezing out the greyish liquid, and feel a small victory in the cleaner patches of skin emerging. It's not glamour, but it's yours. A quiet rebellion against the filth that clings like a second skin. As you pat dry with a thin towel that's more holes than fabric, the sounds of the building intrude. Footsteps thudding overhead, a child wailing down the hall, the distant rumble of carts on the street. You hurry now, knowing the washroom won't stay yours for long. Folding the cloth neatly, habits die hard. You pour the used water into a slop bucket, careful not to splash. The ritual leaves you refreshed, if only superficially, your skin tingling in the cool air. A light joke whispers in your mind. They say cleanliness is next to godliness, but in London, it's more like next to impossible. Good thing heaven probably has hot taps. You smooth your dress, the fabric heavy and unyielding, and step back into the corridor, where the smells rush back like old friends you wish would leave. The day pulls you onward, but that brief wash lingers, a fleeting sense of control in a chaotic world. You weave through the tenement's maze, nodding to neighbors who eye your damp hair with mild envy or curiosity. Back in your shared room, you store the pail under the bed, amid the jumble of belongings that mark territories in this communal chaos. Tom stirs, grumbling about his shift, and you exchange a knowing glance. Everyone's morning starts with some version of this scrub. The cold water's shock fades, replaced by the warmth of routine. But you can't shake the underlying weariness. Modern sarcasm creeps in. If only you could bottle this invigorating chill and sell it as a spa treatment. Victorian vigor in a vial. Side effects include chattering teeth. You sit for a moment on the bed's edge, letting your skin air dry, the scratchy sheets a familiar discomfort. The basin ritual isn't just about dirt. It's about dignity, piecing together poise before facing the streets. You recall whispers from the market about fancy folk using scented waters or even rose petals in their baths. Luxuries as foreign as silk stockings. For you, it's plain and practical, the cold a sharp reminder of your place. Another joke bubbles up. Bathing once a week keeps the doctor away, or at least that's what they claim. Though the doctors here are more blacksmith than healer. You rise, shaking off the droplets, and prepare to venture out, the faint clean feeling your shield against the grime awaiting. The corridor leads you downstairs, where the shared pump in the courtyard gurgles defiantly. You refill your pail for later, the handle squeaking in protest, and carry it back up, muscles aching from the weight. Water's precious, rationed like affection in this hard life. Setting it aside, you think of how this weekly or bi-weekly routine shapes everything. Your confidence at work, the way customers glance at your hands, the subtle judgments in every interaction. The cold sponge bath is a cornerstone, humble yet essential, in Emma's world of scraped-together survival. As you tie your apron, ready for sewing, the tenement's damp embrace feels a tad less oppressive, if only for the illusion of freshness you've claimed. Section 4. You tie the apron strings with a firm knot, the fabric pulling snug against your waist, and glance around the cluttered room for your small tin of grooming supplies, a mismatched collection of odds and ends that pass for personal care in this era. As Emma, your morning isn't complete without tending to your teeth, that often overlooked ritual that separates the barely presentable from the outright feral. You fish out a wooden toothbrush from the tin, its handle worn smooth from use, bristles splayed like a bad hair day. No minty gel here. Instead, you reach for a nub of chalk, grinding it against a stone to make a fine powder that you'll mix with a drop of water from your pail. The paste forms grudgingly, gritty and tasteless, as you spread it on the brush and begin scrubbing, the motion rhythmic like a whispered lullaby in the dim light. The chalk rasps against your enamel, a faint scraping sound that echoes in your skull, leaving your mouth feeling chalky, pun intended, and vaguely clean. You work methodically, circling each tooth, mindful of the gaps where decay has already staked a claim. Modern aside, forget electric brushes with timers. This is analog hygiene at its finest, where deep clean means not chipping a molar on a stubborn bit of grit. A mainstream historical fact. Toothbrushes in the Victorian period were often luxury items, with hog bristles attached to bone or wood handles, costing as much as a week's bread for the working class like you. You rinse with a swig from the pail, swishing the cloudy water around before spitting into a basin. Discreetly, of course, with roommates stirring nearby. The taste lingers, mineral and bland, but it's better than the alternative. that fuzzy film building up from yesterday's meager meal of bread and drippings. If chalk's not on hand, you opt for celery. Yes, the vegetable itself, snapped from a wilted stalk you traded for at the market. You chew the fibrous end thoughtfully, letting the strings scrape away at plaque like nature's own floss. It's crunchy, almost refreshing in the stale air, juices bursting with a faint herbal zing that cuts through the morning breath. A quirky tidbit: some folks swore by powdered cuttlefish bone as toothpaste, harvested from beach finds and ground fine, essentially brushing with seafood skeletons. Because why not turn the ocean into your dentist? You feel the celery's texture working its magic, fibers catching on rough spots, and you chew slowly, savoring the small act of self-care amid the tenement's hum. A light joke drifts through your mind. In Victorian London, oral hygiene is like a blind date, full of surprises, occasionally effective, and often ending with something stuck in your teeth. Historians still argue whether these homemade remedies did more harm than good, with some evidence suggesting the abrasiveness led to enamel wear, while others claim it prevented worse decay in an era before fluoride. You finish with the celery, discarding the mashed end into the slop bucket, and run your tongue over your teeth. Smoother now, if not sparkling. The shared room's closeness amplifies every sound. Tom's cough from the corner, Mary's rustle as she folds laundry. You wipe your mouth on your sleeve, etiquette be damned when handkerchiefs are a rarity, and feel a subtle lift, that post-brush freshness, a quiet win against the day's impending grime. Callbacks to the sponge bath earlier, just like that cold dab on your skin. This tooth ritual is another layer of armor, piecing together poise in a world where smiles hide more than they reveal. Your tin clinks as you tuck the brush away, nestled beside a sliver of soap and a comb missing teeth. Ironic that the chalk residue dusts your fingers, powdery white like flour from a baker's hands, and you rub it off on your apron. If a toothache flares up later, and they do with alarming regularity, you know the drill. No fancy dentist for you. It's off to the local barber, who moonlights as a tooth puller with pliers that look more suited to horseshoes. You shudder at the memory of last year's extraction, the yank and pop that echoed like a cork from a bottle. No numbing, save a swig of cheap gin. Modern sarcasm. Today's root canals seem like spa days compared to that, complete with mood lighting and zero blacksmith vibes. You straighten up, the mintless clean in your mouth, a subtle comfort as you prepare for work, needle and thread calling from the table. The room's damp air carries a faint echo of everyone's routines, breaths mingling in the confined space. You catch Mary eyeing your tin curiously. She's one for soot-based pastes, claiming it whitens like nothing else, though her grin tells a different story, yellowed from years of factory smoke. You share a nod, unspoken solidarity in these makeshift methods. A second joke. They say an apple a day keeps the doctor away, but here it's celery keeping the barber at bay, or at least delaying the inevitable tug. You sip more water, rinsing once more, the coolness soothing your gums. The celery's aftertaste lingers, vegetal and honest, a far cry from the chemical polishes of fancier folk who import boar bristle brushes from across the channel. As Emma, these creative toothpastes are born of necessity, scavenged from kitchens and markets when proper ones are priced like jewels. You remember a neighbor touting burnt breadcrumbs for scrubbing, charred to ash and mixed with salt. Another fringe experiment in the quest for a bearable smile. It worked once, leaving your mouth tasting like a failed bake. But desperation breeds invention. You close the tin with a snap, the sound crisp in the morning hush, and turn to your sewing. The day's light filters weakly through the window, casting shadows on the walls where mold creeps like forgotten secrets. Your teeth feel attended to, a small fortress against the sweets and starches that tempt at street stalls, treacle tarts that stick and rot if you're not vigilant. Pushing forward, you thread your needle, the metallic tang on your tongue fading as focus shifts. But that clean sensation buoys you, a whisper of resilience in the grind. Another joke, brushing with chalk. It's art class for your mouth, sketching a brighter future, one gritty stroke at a time. You smile to yourself, lips curving over freshly scrubbed teeth, and bend to your work, the tenement's rhythm enveloping you once more. The shared space feels less oppressive with these rituals complete, each one a thread weaving dignity into the fabric of survival. Outside, the city's clamor beckons, promising challenges but also the faint hope of a better bite, literal and figurative, in this chalk-dusted existence. Section 5. You set aside the needle and thread, the half-mended hem forgotten for a moment, as a familiar itch creeps across your scalp. That build-up from days of city dust and sweat weaving into your locks like unwelcome threads. As Emma, hair washing isn't a casual rinse under a faucet. It's an event, planned like a market trip, and today's the day you've carved out for it. You gather your supplies from a hidden nook under the bed, a cracked jug, a few precious eggs bartered from a neighbor's hens, and a bottle of vinegar that's more sour than your mood on rent day. The shared room hums with activity, Mary folding linens, Tom lacing his boots. But you claim a corner by the window, spreading an old sheet to catch the mess. The light filters in weakly, turning the air golden with floating specks. And you crack the first egg over a bowl, the yolk plopping thickly like a sunrise in miniature. You work the golden goo into your hair, fingers massaging it through strands that haven't seen water in weeks, the slickness coating each lock with a breakfast-like sheen. It's sticky at first, clinging like honey gone wrong. But as you knead deeper, it softens the grime, lifting away the accumulated oils and soot from factory chimneys that drift in like uninvited fog. The smell wafts up, eggy and raw, mingling with the room's damp mustiness. And you wrinkle your nose, wondering if this is glamour or just desperation disguised as routine. Modern aside, picture swapping your fruity shampoo for this. It's like turning your head into an omelette station, minus the cheese and a side of skepticism. You let it sit, the weight pulling gently as you tilt your head back, eyes closed against the faint drip tracing your temple. A mainstream historical fact. Victorian women prized long, elaborate hairstyles as symbols of femininity, washing hair only monthly to avoid weakening it, often using kitchen staples like eggs for shine in an age before commercial products. The egg mixture warms from your scalp's heat, turning almost soothing as it penetrates. But you know the rinse is the tricky part. No endless hot stream here, just the pail's chilly reserve poured carefully over the basin. You lean forward, cascading the water through, watching the yolk-tinted runoff swirl away like a murky river. It's cold, shocking your roots, but effective, leaving your hair feeling lighter, less burdened by the week's grime. If eggs aren't available, vinegar steps in. You splash it diluted from the bottle, the sharp tang biting the air like a lemon's revenge, cutting through residue with acidic efficiency. It rinses cleaner, strands squeaking under your fingers, but the scent lingers, vinegary and sharp, like you've doused yourself in salad dressing. A quirky tidbit: some daring souls experimented with rum or black tea for rinses, believing the alcohol or tannins added body, essentially boozing up your barnet for that elusive bounce. You towel off with a rag, the fabric absorbing the dampness as best it can, and comb through the tangles, each pull a gentle tug of war. The shared room's closeness means privacy is a myth. Tom averts his eyes politely, but Mary's chuckle breaks the quiet. "Smells like breakfast in here, Emma. Planning to fry up next?" You laugh softly, the sound light in the heavy air. Hair day jokes are as common as the ritual itself. A light joke echoes in your thoughts. Washing with eggs? It's nature's way of saying your head's got potential, as long as you don't crack under pressure. Historians still argue whether these homemade concoctions preserved hair health or invited scalp woes, with debates centering on whether natural acids like vinegar prevented dandruff or stripped essential oils too harshly. You twist your hair into a simple knot, securing it with a pin. The freshness, a subtle glow that lifts your spirits amid the tenement's gloom. Callbacks to earlier rituals, just like the chalk on your teeth or the cold sponge across your skin. This hair treatment is another stitch in your daily tapestry, weaving cleanliness from whatever's at hand. The vinegar's bite fades, replaced by a faint herbal note. If you've added rosemary sprigs, scavenged from a street vendor's wilted bunch. To mask the sharpness, you shake out the sheet, folding away the evidence, and glance in the cracked mirror. Strands gleam subtly, less lank, more manageable for the elaborate updos expected at work. Modern sarcasm. If only you could post this kitchen hack online. It'd go viral as the original no-poo method, complete with excellent reviews. The process takes time, your fingers pruned from the wet work, but it's worth it. Unwashed hair piles up odors like debts, rancid and heavy, turning your crowning glory into a crown of thorns. You sit back, letting it air dry in the drafty room, the strands cool against your neck. Other options float through your mind. Wealthy ladies might use pomades from apothecaries, exotic oils that go bad after days. But for you, it's eggs or vinegar, simple, affordable, and oddly effective. A second joke: vinegar rinse? It's like pickling your scalp, preserves youth, or at least the illusion, until the next wash cycle. The shared space resumes its rhythm, conversations murmuring as you return to sewing, needle flashing in the light. Your hair feels renewed, a small luxury in the grind, buoying you against the street's assault waiting outside. The egg's richness or vinegar's cut. Either way, it's a kitchen experiment turned triumph, your head a canvas for resourcefulness. As the dampness evaporates, you pin stray wisps, styling simply to avoid the elaborate piles that trap more dirt. The smell dissipates, blending into the room's bouquet, and you feel prepared, scalp tingling with that post-wash clarity. Another joke: they call it hair care, but in Victorian times, it's more like hair dare. Will it shine, or just smell like supper? You rise, basket in arm. The freshness your quiet ally as you navigate the stairs, tenement's damp walls brushing close. The city's pulse calls, but with clean hair, you step lighter, dignity intact amid the chaos. Section 6. You let the last pins settle into your hair, the damp strands cooling against your nape as you turn your attention to the pile of linens and garments heaped in the corner, your laundry, a mountain that's grown like the mold on these walls, demanding its due before the week's end. As Emma, this isn't a quick spin cycle. It's a full-day siege, arms deep in suds and sweat that leaves you more exhausted than a shift at the needle. You haul the basket to the shared courtyard, the wicker creaking under the weight, and set up by the communal tub, a battered wooden trough that's seen more battles than a soldier's boots. The air out here is sharper, laced with the acrid bite of coal smoke from nearby chimneys, and you roll up your sleeves, bracing for the grind. Water sloshes from the pump into buckets, cold and unyielding, as you heat what you can over a small fire scavenged from twigs and scraps. No gas stoves for the likes of you. You start with the soaking, plunging the fabrics into the tub where they've sat overnight in a murky brew, the stains staring back like accusatory eyes. For stubborn marks, you grab the lye soap, harsh and biting on your skin. But it's the urine that's the real workhorse here, collected from chamber pots and left to ferment for its ammonia kick, a natural bleach that cuts through grime like nothing else. You scrub vigorously, knuckles roar against the washboard's ridges, the rhythmic scrape echoing like a reluctant heartbeat in the courtyard's hush. Bubbles form grudgingly, foam tinged yellow from the urine's essence, and you wrinkle your nose at the pungent whiff, rising like a ghost from the past. Modern aside, imagine tossing your load into a machine with pods that smell like lavender. Here, it's more like channeling your inner alchemist, turning waste into wonder, or at least wearable. The effort builds heat in your muscles, a slow burn that matches the fire crackling nearby for rinsing water. Oil stains get a dusting of chalk first, ground fine and rubbed in like seasoning on a roast, absorbing the slick before the full assault. Blood or grass? You reach for kerosene, its oily sheen mixing into the suds with a flammable tang that makes you wary of sparks. For odors that cling like bad habits, milk's your ally. Sour and thick, poured over the fabric to neutralize the funk before scrubbing anew. The whole process is a symphony of sloshes and splashes, your arms aching as you wring each piece, twisting until water drips like reluctant tears. A mainstream historical fact: laundry day in Victorian households consumed entire days weekly, with women hauling up to 50 gallons of water per load, contributing to widespread physical ailments like rheumatism from the constant damp and strain. You pause to flex your fingers, the skin pruned and red, feeling the toll in every joint. But clean clothes mean respectability, a shield against the judgments whispered in market stalls. If urine's scarce, or the smell too much even for you, you improvise with ashes from the hearth, boiled into a lie that's as caustic as a sharp tongue, eating away at dirt but nipping at your hands like tiny beasts. The courtyard fills with your efforts, steam rising faintly as you pour hot rinses, the water turning from clear to cloudy grey, carrying away the week's sins. A quirky tidbit: some households swore by soaking linens in horse manure tea for extra whitening power, believing the enzymes broke down stains, essentially farming out cleanliness to the stables. one steaming pile at a time. You chuckle softly amid the scrub, the sound lost in the slosh. Laundry with urine? It's recycling at its finest, or foulest, depending on your nose's opinion. Historians still argue whether these ammonia-based methods were ingenious resourcefulness or a health hazard, debating whether the fumes contributed to respiratory issues or if the cleaning efficacy outweighed the risks in an era of limited alternatives. Callbacks to the hair ritual. Just like cracking eggs over your scalp felt like kitchen chaos, this urine scrub turns the courtyard into a bizarre brewery, blending bodily byproducts with brute force for that elusive, fresh feel. You hang the rung pieces on lines strung between buildings, the fabrics flapping like flags of surrender in the breeze, dripping onto the stones below. Neighbors join the fray, their baskets spilling over, chatter weaving through the air, complaints about stubborn ink, tips on starch from potato water for crisp collars. Your dress hem catches a splash, but you ignore it. Focus is key, or the day stretches into night. Modern sarcasm. If only apps existed for this. Laundrymate. Match your stains to solutions. Urine edition. The sun peaks weakly, aiding the dry. But in rain, it's back inside to drape over chairs, the room turning humid like a greenhouse gone wrong. You tackle the underthings last, those rare linen shifts that see more sweat than soap, scrubbing with extra vigor, the urine's ammonia biting through layers of accumulated grime. Wringing them out, your arms protest with a deep ache, but satisfaction blooms as they hang, pale and promising. A light joke. They say cleanliness is next to godliness, but with urine soap, it's more like next to the privy, holy water of a different sort. The ordeal winds down as the fire dies, embers glowing like tired eyes, and you gather the semi-dry pile, folding with care to avoid wrinkles that mock your efforts. The courtyard empties, folks retreating with their loads, and you haul yours upstairs, the basket lighter now, but your body heavier from the labor. Back in the shared room, you sort the clothes on the bed, the faint ammonia scent lingering like a stubborn guest. Tom's eyebrow quirks at the whiff, but he says nothing. Everyone knows the drill. You smooth a petticoat, its fabric rough but renewed, ready for another week's wear. Another joke. Laundry day, where you wash away the dirt, but the exhaustion sticks like glue. The process, grueling as it is, restores a bit of order. Your wardrobe a testament to tenacity in this filthy fray. As evening creeps, you sink onto the mattress, muscles humming with fatigue. The clean linens a soft reward against your skin. The tenement sounds fade to a murmur, and you close your eyes briefly, the ordeal behind you. For now. Action 7. You fold the last of the linens with a soft sigh, the fabric whispering against your palms as you stack them neatly on the shelf that's more splinter than storage in this cramped corner. As Emma, the clean clothes bring a fleeting sense of order, but beneath it all, literally, lurks the reality of what you wear closest to your skin, or often don't. Undergarments aren't the plush, breathable essentials you're imagining. For most, like you, they're optional at best, a luxury skimped on to stretch pennies further. You slip into your shift, the linen coarse and yellowed from infrequent washes, hanging loose without the support of anything more. No drawers or knickers here. Those are for the well-heeled, who can afford the extra fabric and the time to maintain it. You feel the air brush your skin, directly under the heavy skirts, a vulnerability that's become second nature, like walking barefoot on familiar stones. The absence hits you as you move, the layers of petticoats and dress swishing without that barrier, absorbing every drop of sweat and speck of dust the day throws your way. In the tenement's closeness, with bodies brushing in shared spaces, modesty relies on outer propriety rather than inner armor. You adjust the shift's neckline, tugging it straight. It's your base layer, changed perhaps bi-weekly if laundry day aligns with luck, carrying the faint musk of your body like a personal signature. Modern aside, think of ditching your comfy undies for a commando lifestyle in wool skirts. Freedom, sure, but with a side of chafing that'd make modern yoga pants seem like silk dreams. The fabric clings slightly, warmed by your heat, and you wonder how the wealthy manage their linens, rumored to have multiples rotated daily by silent servants. For you, it's this one piece, versatile and vital, yet odorous after days of wear, blending sweat with the city's pervasive coal tang. When you do have underthings, perhaps a pair of linen drawers inherited or sewn from scraps, they're not the elastic wonders of today, but loose, tied at the waist with strings that loosen at inconvenient moments. You tie them now, the knots familiar under your fingers, but changing them? That's a rarity, stretched to weeks amid the laundry's demands. The odor builds subtly, a mix of body salts and absorbed spills, spilled tea from breakfast, grease from mending oily hems, trapped in the weave until the next scrub. A mainstream historical fact. In the Victorian working class, undergarments were often foregone entirely due to cost, with estimates suggesting up to 70% of poor women wore none under their dresses, relying on multiple petticoats for coverage and warmth. You step toward the mirror, the shift's hem brushing your ankles, and catch the faint whiff rising, earthy, intimate, a reminder that cleanliness starts from the inside out, but resources dictate otherwise. For special days, like a rare outing to the market or church, you might layer an extra petticoat, starched, stiff from potato water, to add volume and hide the lack below. But the odor? It's inescapable, wafting up in warm moments, a blend of unwashed skin and fabric that's seen too many sunrises without soap. You fan the skirt slightly, airing it discreetly while roommates avert their eyes. Unspoken courtesy in this shared existence. A quirky tidbit? Some women fashioned makeshift pads from moss or rags during their monthlies. But for every day, a fringe practice involved sprinkling dried lavender scraps into hems, if you could snag any from a posh discard, to combat the pong, turning undergarments into herbal sachets gone awry. You smile faintly at the thought. The lavender's ghost scent, a luxury you've tried once, pilfered from a customer's torn gown. A light joke murmurs in your mind. No underwear in Victorian London? It's like going au natural in a fog, misty, mysterious, and occasionally regrettable when the wind picks up. Historians still argue whether skipping undergarments was more a health boon, allowing air circulation in an era of heavy clothing, or a vector for skin irritations and infections from constant fabric friction. You feel the debate in every step, the freedom laced with discomfort as you navigate the room, skirts swishing freely. Callbacks to laundry's urine scrub. Those same ammonia-laced suds are what eventually freshen these sparse layers. But until then, The odor lingers like a stubborn fog, seeping into outer clothes and turning every hug or close quarter into a nasal negotiation. Modern sarcasm. If scent were currency, you'd be rich. Eau de Emma, with notes of sweat, smoke, and subtle despair. The shared bed beckons for a brief rest, but you resist, knowing lying down would only press the smells deeper into the sheets. The day's heat builds, even in the dim tenement, and you feel the underlayers, or lack, dampen with perspiration, the linen shift turning clammy against your thighs. Wealthier women, from tales overheard at work, boast chemises of fine cotton, changed often and scented with rosewater. But for you, it's this hardy piece, patched and repurposed until threads fray. You adjust again, the motion habitual, ensuring nothing shows in the mirror's unforgiving gaze. The odor isn't overpowering yet early in the cycle, but by evening, after streets and sewing, it'll assert itself, a personal cloud that follows like a loyal shadow. Another joke. Undergarments optional? It's the original choose your own adventure, comfort or coverage, with a plot twist of potential embarrassment. You venture downstairs, the stairs creaking in sympathy, and the courtyard's breeze offers brief relief, lifting skirts just enough to ventilate without scandal. Neighbors chat over their mending, whispers of fresh days when linens are swapped, but admissions of going without are nodded knowingly. No judgment in shared poverty. The odor from collective underlayers mingles in the air, a communal bouquet that's normalized, like the fog that blankets the city. You think of adding a sachet next time, perhaps cloves pilfered from a spice stall to mask the mustiness. Fringe indeed, but hopeful. A third joke. In this era, fresh undies are like unicorns, mythical, magical, and rarely spotted in the wild. The sun dips lower, casting long shadows, and you return upstairs, the optional undergarments a silent testament to endurance, odorous but unbowed in the daily dance. As night falls, you peel off the layers carefully, hanging the shift to air by the window, hoping the draft carries away some scent before tomorrow's reuse. The bed's straw prickles bare skin, but it's familiar. The lack of barriers, a strange intimacy with yourself. Roommates settle in, their odors blending into the night's hush, and you drift towards sleep. The day's residues, a soft reminder of life's unvarnished edges. Section 8. You stir from that shallow doze as dawn's grey light filters through the tenement's grimy pain, the city's relentless hum pulling you back to wakefulness like a persistent tug on your sleeve. As Emma, sleep was fitful, tangled in the shift's faint odors and the shared bed's creaks. But now you rise, smoothing skirts that still carry yesterday's subtle musk, and step out into the corridor, basket hooked over your arm for the day's errands. The stairs descend into the courtyard, where the air hangs heavier, a prelude to the streets beyond, those winding veins of London pulsing with life and refuse in equal measure. You push through the gate, the iron latch cold under your fingers, and merge into the flow of bodies, the cobblestones uneven beneath your thin soles, slick with overnight dew and remnants of who knows what. The smell assaults first, a thick wave of manure from passing horses, mingled with the sharp rot of discarded peels and the acrid bite of chimney exhaust. It's like breathing through a soiled rag, clingy and unavoidable. You weave through the throng, skirts brushing against vendors' carts, laden with wilted greens and dubious pies, the wheels churning up mud that's more sludge than soil. Horses clop by in droves, their flanks steaming in the chill, each dropping piles that steam too, attracting swarms of flies that buzz like tiny demons in the haze. You swat at one landing on your sleeve, its iridescent wings flickering before it darts away. Persistent pests, these, drawn to every warm body and open wound in the city. The streets are a labyrinth of filth, gutters overflowing with grey water that trickles from windows, tossed slops, pooling in dips where children splash barefoot, oblivious or hardened to the muck. You sidestep a particularly foul patch, the squelch underfoot a grim reminder that cleanliness ends at your doorstep, if it even begins there. Modern aside, imagine trading your paved sidewalks for this obstacle course. It's like a video game level where dodging dung is the main quest, and flies are the bonus enemies. The air tastes metallic, laced with the coal fires belching from every rooftop, turning the fog into a sooty soup that coats your throat like velvet gone wrong. You cough softly, handkerchief pressed to your mouth, a scrap of linen that's seen better days, as a carriage rattles past, splattering mud onto your hem with casual indifference. The driver cracks his whip, horses straining, and behind them, the inevitable deposit adds to the carpet of manure blanketing the road, estimated at tons per day from thousands of beasts powering the city's commerce. A mainstream historical fact. London's horse population in the 1850s exceeded 100,000, producing over 1,000 tons of manure daily, which piled up in streets without systematic removal, contributing to widespread health hazards. You press on, the flies thickening near a heap of rotting garbage tossed from an upper window, shouts of gardy-loo barely warning in time. The decay drawing them in droves, their hum a constant underscore to the vendor's cries. If it's dry, the manure bakes into dust that swirls up with every step, coating your lashes and lips in a fine, gritty film. Breathe it in, and it's like inhaling the city's underbelly. But today, a drizzle turns it to slurry, rivers of brown snaking between stones, forcing you to hop like a cautious bird. A quirky tidbit: street sweepers, dubbed mudlarks by some, scavenged the filth for lost coins or bones to sell for glue, turning the manure mounds into makeshift treasure hunts amid the swarms of flies that treated them like buffets. You spot one now, a ragged boy poking with a stick, flies orbiting his head like a living halo. Poor lad, knee-deep in what the posh folk produce without a second thought. A light joke flickers through your mind. London's streets, where every stroll is a manure minefield, and flies are the welcoming committee, buzzing mind your step in insect Morse code. Historians still argue whether the constant exposure to such street filth built immunity in residents or accelerated disease spread, with debates hinging on whether urban adaptation outweighed the sanitary toll in pre-reform London. You feel the weight of it in every breath, the flies landing boldly on exposed skin, their tiny feet tickling before you brush them off. Callbacks to the undergarment's sparseness. Without that extra layer, the splatters hit closer to home, seeping through skirts to leave sticky reminders that linger until laundry's mercy. You hurry past a market stall, the vendor hawking fresh fish that smell anything but. Flies dancing over the glistening scales like uninvited guests at a feast. The crowd presses, elbows and baskets jostling, each person carrying their aura of unwashed exertion, sweat, smoke, and street grime blending into a collective pong that's oddly democratic, afflicting rich and poor alike, though the former ride above it in closed carriages. The flies seem endless, drawn to the open sewers, masquerading as gutters, where waste from chamber pots mingles with horse leavings in a foul alchemy. You cover your nose as a night soil cart rumbles by, its contents sloshing under tarpaulin. Those brave souls emptying cesspits under cover of darkness, but their residue trails like a scented shadow. Modern sarcasm. If flies had tourism boards, London's streets would be 5-star rated. Endless dining options, scenic manure views, and complimentary buzz for ambience. You turn a corner into a narrower alley, the walls closing in, graffiti scrawled in charcoal urging clean the Thames amid the filth. Ironic pleas lost in the swarm. A second joke. Walking these streets is like a fly's paradise. Manure buffets on every block, and humans as mobile landing pads. No wonder they outnumber us 10-1. Pushing through to the broader thoroughfare, the chaos amplifies. Omnibuses packed with passengers, their roofs dripping from rain, wheels grinding the muck deeper into ruts. You dodge a puddle that's more sewage than storm, the reflection rippling with your hurried face. Pale, determined, flecked with soot. The flies follow, undeterred, one landing on your basket's edge before you flick it away. Vendors shout over the din, selling rags or hot eels, their stalls besieged by the winged horde that treats every surface as a perch. You buy a penny loaf, brushing off a persistent buzzer before biting in. The bread stale but sustaining, crumbs drawing more attention from the air. The street's pulse throbs, a living entity of dirt and determination, where survival means navigating the filth without letting it define you. As midday sun struggles through the haze, the smells intensify, warmed into a potent brew that clings to your clothes like an unwanted embrace. You pause by a pump for a sip, the water brackish but quenching, flies hovering near the spout as if claiming territory. Another joke. In this fly-infested maze, getting home clean is the real Victorian miracle. Part luck, part leapfrog over the dung. The journey continues, errands pulling you deeper into the web, each step a testament to resilience amid the swarm and slime. Evening approaches, the streets dimming, but the flies persist, shadows buzzing in the gaslight's flicker, a constant companion in London's unyielding grime. Section 9. You clutch the penny loaf tighter, its crusty edges digging into your palm as you weave through the bustling street, the flies still trailing like pesky shadows in the fading light. As Emma, your errands are done. But the trek back to the tenement means facing the courtyard's grim centerpiece, the shared privy, a rickety wooden shack squatting over a pit that's more menace than convenience. You push open the gate, the hinges squealing in protest, and join the short line of neighbors waiting their turn, each face etched with resignation. The air here is thick, a sour punch of human waste rising from the open pit, cutting through the coal smoke and street muck like a knife. You hold your breath, the loaf tucked under your arm, and shift your weight, the ground soft and unsettling beneath your boots. The privy's door bangs shut as Mary exits, her nose wrinkled, muttering about the stench as she brushes past, leaving you next in line. Stepping inside, the darkness swallows you, broken only by slivers of light through warped boards. and the smell slams harder, a wall of ammonia and decay that makes your eyes water. The chamber pot under your bed is your nighttime savior. But mornings mean this communal ordeal. A hole in a splintered seat, flies buzzing like a choir of the damned, drawn to the cesspool below. You do what you must, quick and mechanical. The pot's contents from last night sloshing into the pit with a dull splash that echoes in the cramped space. Modern aside, imagine swapping your flush toilet for this. No porcelain throne, just a plank and a prayer, with an audience of insects cheering you on. You finish swiftly, no paper to spare. Rags or leaves are a luxury, so you smooth your skirts and exit, gulping the courtyard's relatively fresher air like it's fine wine. Back in the tenement, you empty the pot into a bucket for the night soilmen, those nocturnal heroes who cart away the city's leavings under cover of darkness, their work too vile for daylight scrutiny. The bucket sits by the door, its contents a silent tenant until their midnight rounds, the faint slosh a reminder of the cycle that never pauses. A mainstream historical fact. London's night soil trade employed hundreds in the 1850s, collecting human waste from privies and cesspools to sell as fertilizer to rural farmers. A grim but vital economy that kept fields fertile and cities barely bearable. You rinse the pot with a splash from your dwindling pail, the water clouding instantly, and set it back under the bed, its chipped ceramic a familiar sight amid the straw mattress's lumps. The room's closeness presses in, Tom's snores blending with the baby's fussing. But the ritual grounds you, a necessary task, however foul, in this shared existence. Some nights, you hear whispers of folks too tired or bold, tossing pot contents out windows into the street below, a lazy shortcut that adds to the morning's mire. You shake your head at the thought, knowing it only fuels the flies and the filth you navigated earlier. A quirky tidbit, a few penny-pinching landlords rented out cesspool sludge to tanners, who used its ammonia for curing hides. Your bodily waste leathering someone's shoes, a cycle as bizarre as it is practical. You chuckle softly, the sound muffled in the dim room. Chamber pots are the gift that keeps giving, first to you, then to the fields, and maybe even a dandy's boots. Historians still argue whether this waste trade reduced urban sanitation woes or exacerbated them by delaying proper sewer systems, with some claiming it sustained rural agriculture, while others point to overflowing cesspits as cholera's breeding ground. Callbacks to the street's manure piles. Just as horses blanket the roads, your pot's contents join the city's endless output, a hidden tide feeding the same rivers you drink from. You settle on the bed's edge, the straw prickling through thin sheets, and glance at the bucket, its odor creeping despite your efforts. Modern sarcasm. Forget composting bins. Victorian recycling meant your privy contributions grew next year's carrots, farm to table in the worst way. The shared room hums with evening routines, Mary darning socks, the O'Briens hushing their child, and you feel the weight of this daily dance, where even the most private acts are communal property. A light joke drifts through. Emptying chamber pots should come with a medal, or at least a nose plug, because bravery smells a lot like last night's supper gone wrong. You light a stub of candle, its flicker casting shadows on the damp walls, and check the pot for cracks. The last thing you need is a leak to spice up the night. The air carries a faint whiff from the bucket, mingling with the room's musty bouquet. but you've grown accustomed, nose numbed by necessity. Neighbors' tales float back, stories of night soil men slipping on dark stairs, their carts spilling into alleys, turning midnight into a stench-soaked spectacle. You shudder, grateful for their labor, but not their lot, and tuck the loaf away, its crust now dusted with the day's grime. Another joke. Night soil men, the unsung heroes who prove you can make a living out of everyone else's business. Literally. The candle sputters, wax dripping, and you blow it out, the darkness softening the room's edges as you lie back. The pot's duty done for now. The mattress creaks under you, a reminder of shared burdens, and you think of tomorrow's privy line, the same ritual awaiting like a grim encore. The city's pulse slows outside, but the bucket's presence looms, a silent promise of the night soil men's visit. A third joke. Chamber pots are Victorian multitasking, bedside convenience, farmer's gold, and a fly's five-star resort, all in one chipped bowl. You close your eyes, the day's filth settling into memory, and brace for sleep, knowing the cycle of pots and pits will spin on, binding you to this tenement's rhythm in a world where even waste has its place. The quiet deepens, broken only by soft breaths and distant street cries as you drift. The privy's echo fading into the night's embrace. Section 10. You wake to the faint clatter of the night soil cart fading into the pre-dawn hush, its wheels grinding against the cobblestones as the men haul away the courtyard's grim harvest. As Emma, you rub sleep from your eyes and swing your legs over the bed's edge, the straw mattress rustling beneath you. Today's task pulls you toward the communal pump, your chipped jug in hand, for the water that's as vital as breath in this grimy world. You step into the courtyard, the air cool and damp, and join the line of neighbors cranking the handle for their share. The pump groans, spitting a sluggish stream that's more silt than clear, tinged with an iron tang that catches in your throat. You fill the jug, careful not to spill, knowing this is your lifeline, not just for washing or drinking, but for cooking the meager meals that keep you going. The water sloshes as you carry it back, heavy against your hip, and you think of its source, the Thames, London's lifeblood and cesspool, a river that's less liquid than a stew of the city's sins. Back in the tenement, you set the jug on the table, its surface scarred from countless such mornings, and pour a portion into a kettle for tea. Second-hand leaves, steeped until they're bitter but warm. The rest you ration for the day, a mental tally of sips and splashes in a world where waste isn't an option. You sip the tea, its heat cutting through the room's chill, and stare at the jug, knowing its contents come from the same Thames where chamber pots empty and factories spew their dregs. The river's surface, from tails at the market, shimmers with oil and refuse, bobbing with things better left unnamed. Yet it's what you drink, cook with, live by. Modern aside, imagine your tap water coming from a sewer's cousin. You'd stockpile bottled water faster than a doomsday prepper. But here, it's just another Tuesday, a mainstream historical fact. In the 1850s, the Thames supplied much of London's drinking water, despite receiving untreated sewage from over 2 million residents, leading to cholera outbreaks that killed thousands annually. You recall a neighbor's story of boiling water to kill the badness, a half-believed remedy that does little against the river's invisible poisons. Some add a drop of gin claiming it purifies. More likely, it just dulls the taste and the fear. You've tried it once, the alcohol's bite masking the water's murk. But pennies don't stretch to such habits. Instead, you strain the jug's contents through a scrap of muslin, catching flecks of grit that settle like dark snow. A quirky tidbit? Some Londoners swore by tossing a sprig of mint into their water jugs, believing its freshness countered the Thames's foulness, a floral band-aid on a festering wound. But it gave hope, if not health. You smile wryly, the tea's warmth grounding you. Drinking from this river is like playing dice with death, and the house always wins. A light joke flickers through. Thames water, nature's cocktail, with notes of sludge, despair, and a hint of yesterday's privy. Historians still argue whether Londoners' resilience to contaminated water stemmed from gradual immunity or sheer desperation, with some pointing to high mortality rates as proof of the latter, while others suggest survivors adapted to low-level toxins. You feel the debate in every cautious sip, the water's chill sliding down your throat, heavy with unseen threats, callbacks to the chamber pot's grim cycle. Your waste, emptied into the cesspit, likely joins this river's flow, a closed loop that binds the city in a filthy embrace. You set the cup down, the tea's aftertaste lingering, and glance outside where fog curls like a ghost over the rooftops, hiding the Thames's brown ribbon in its haze. Modern sarcasm. If you bottled this river, you'd label it Eau de London, bold, unfiltered, and guaranteed to make you rethink hydration. The room stirs as roommates rise, each with their jugs of the same suspect water, poured for porridge or washing. Mary splashes her face, muttering about the taste, while Tom gulps his share like it's ale, unperturbed. You share a look, solidarity in survival. No words needed. The jug's contents dictate your day. Enough for a quick rinse, a meal, maybe a damp cloth for the baby's fevered brow if the O'Briens ask. You think of wealthier folk, their water piped from cleaner springs or hauled by servants. But for you, it's this murky gift from the Thames, shared by all who crowd these streets. Another joke. They say water's life. But here, it's more like a dare. Drink up, and hope tomorrow's not your last toast. You move to the stove, a rusty relic that coughs smoke as you coax it to boil more water, the steam rising like a faint promise of purity. The kettle whistles, shrill in the quiet, and you pour carefully, saving every drop. Tales from the pump line echo. A doctor named Snow, scoffed at for claiming water, not air, spreads cholera. Madness, most say. But you wonder, tasting the jug's faint bitterness. The river's pull is inescapable, its currents threading through every cup, every pot, every life. A third joke. Thames waters, the great equalizer. Rich or poor, we all sip from the same soupy stream, just with different cups to hide the truth. You finish the tea, its warmth fading, and brace for the day. The jug a silent sentinel of the city's liquid nightmare, your survival hinging on its murky depths. As morning unfolds, you carry the jug's weight in your mind, rationing its use like a miser's coins. The tenement's rhythm resumes, needles flashing, boots stomping out, and you step into it, the Thames's shadow trailing you like a grim companion. The water's taste lingers, a reminder of the river's dual role, sustainer and saboteur, its flow a mirror of London's contradictions. Section 11. You set the jug down with a heavy thud on the tenement's scarred table, the water's surface rippling like the Thames itself, and wipe your brow, the day's warmth building despite the fog outside. As Emma, summer's grip tightens on London, turning the air into a stifling blanket that amplifies every odor, every discomfort in this overcrowded world. You step out for fresh bread, but the streets feel different, hotter, heavier, the usual filth baking under relentless sun that beats down without mercy. The manure piles steam, their scent rising in waves that make your stomach churn, and the gutters, usually sluggish, now ferment in the heat, bubbling with a sickly sweetness that clings to your skin. You hurry along, skirts heavy with sweat, but the river's pull draws you near Westminster Bridge, where the Thames reveals its true horror. Banks caked with sewage, exposed by low tide, a thick sludge that glistens like oil under the glare. The smell hits like a physical force, a wall of rot and decay so potent it forces you to press a handkerchief to your nose, eyes watering as you gag. This isn't just another bad day. It's the Great Stink, that infamous summer where the heat wave transforms the river into a monster, its stench invading every corner of the city. You lean against the bridge's railing, the iron warm under your palms, and watch boats bob on the brown water, their oars slicing through filth that coats everything it touches. People nearby vomit over the side, handkerchiefs failing against the assault. And you feel it too, the nausea rising like bile, the air so thick it's like swallowing soup gone wrong. Families flee their riverside homes, boarding up windows that do little to block the reek, and businesses shutter, customers driven away by the invisible plague. Modern aside, picture your worst garbage day multiplied by a city's worth of neglect. You'd call in sick, but here, there's no escape, just endurance in a heat that turns waste into a weapon. A mainstream historical fact. The Great Stink of 1858 was triggered by unusually hot weather and low river levels, concentrating untreated sewage and causing a public health crisis that finally spurred parliamentary action on sanitation. You push on toward Parliament, the grand buildings looming through the haze. But even there, the mighty aren't spared. Members flee the chambers, faces buried in scented cloths, debates halted as the stench seeps through open windows meant for ventilation. You overhear whispers from passers-by, curtains doused in lime chloride to mask the smell, but it only creates a weird chemical tang that worsens the nausea. Proposals floated to relocate the entire government, abandoning the opulent halls rather than face the river's wrath. You imagine the lords gagging mid-speech, handkerchiefs pressed tight, their fine suits no shield against the democratic stink that levels all. A quirky tidbit: scientists tested the water's foulness by dropping white paper into it, watching it vanish instantly into the murk. A simple experiment that proved what noses already knew. The Thames was more sewer than stream. You stifle a retch, the loaf forgotten in your basket, and think, even the powerful bend to this, their debates dissolving in waves of revulsion. Historians still argue whether the Great Stink was more a catalyst for reform or a symptom of decades-long neglect, with some claiming it accelerated Bazalgette's sewers, while others see it as one crisis in a chain of sanitary failures. You feel the paralysis in the air, the city grinding to a halt as people avoid the riverbanks, their daily routines shattered by the unrelenting assault. Callbacks to the Thames's murky jug. That same water you sipped this morning fuels this nightmare. Its contamination now airborne, invading lungs and lives without prejudice. You turn away from the bridge, the stench following like a shadow, seeping into your clothes, your hair, turning every breath a battle. Modern sarcasm. If odors had Olympics, the great stink would gold medal in endurance, outlasting even the stuffiest parliamentary filibuster. The heat presses on, no rain to wash away the bank's deposits, and you navigate side streets where the smell lingers, weaker but insidious, mixing with coal fires and market rot. Vendors hawk nosegays of flowers to combat it, wilted blooms clutched like talismans, but they wilt faster in the sun, their sweetness overpowered. You buy one anyway, a penny's worth of lavender that you press to your face, its faint herbal note a brief reprieve in the onslaught. Children play nearby, seemingly immune, splashing in puddles that shimmer with iridescent slicks. But you know the toll it takes, the illnesses brewing in that foul brew. A light joke crosses your mind. The great stink, London's unwanted perfume, with top notes of despair and base notes of regret, bottled free for all who dare breathe. Parliament's bells toll distantly, but sessions are curtailed, members fleeing to fresher air, their handkerchiefs soaked in vinegar or camphor, clumsy attempts at defense. You recall overheard gossip. Dickens himself, railing against the deadly sewer that was once a fine river, his words echoing the city's collective groan. The press dubs it the Great Stink, headlines screaming of the crisis, cartoons depicting MPs as flies on the dung heap of their own making. You chuckle bitterly, the sound lost in the hum of the crowd. Irony at its finest, the lawmakers choked by the laws they failed to pass. Another joke. They say talk is cheap, but in Parliament that summer, it came with a side of retching, priceless motivation for change. The sun climbs higher, intensifying the ferment, and you hurry home. The tenement's damp walls, a relative sanctuary from the river's reach. Neighbors cluster in doorways, fanning themselves with rags, sharing tales of abandoned homes and fleeing families. Mary's face is pale as she describes vomiting just from crossing the bridge, her washerwoman hands trembling. You nod, sharing your brush with the brink, the loaf now unappetizing in the basket. The stink paralyzes not just Parliament, but the people markets sluggish, workers absent, the city's pulse faltering under the weight of its waste. A third joke, the Great Stink, where even the fish in the Thames hold their noses if they haven't floated up dead already. Evening falls, the heat lingering like a bad dream, and you lie on the bed, window cracked for any breeze, but it brings only hints of the river's wrath. The paralysis grips you too, energy sapped by the constant fight for fresh air, but whispers of change circulate, engineers plotting sewers, scientists demanding action. You close your eyes, the stench a faint echo in your nostrils, enduring as the city holds its breath for relief. Action 12. You stand amid the clamor of construction, the ground trembling under your feet as workers swing picks into the earth, their shouts echoing off half-demolished buildings that lean like weary giants. As Emma, you've heard the rumors for months, a grand plan to tame the city's bowels, led by a man named Basil Jett, an engineer with vision bold enough to challenge the Thames itself. The streets are torn open, trenches snaking through neighborhoods like veins exposed, bricks piling high as mountains, while families relocate in hurried clusters, their belongings carted away on wagons that creak under the load. You weave through the chaos, skirts hitched to avoid the mud churned by boots and wheels, and marvel at the scale. These aren't mere patches, but a complete rebirth. Over 1,000 miles of sewers burrowing beneath London to carry the waste far downstream. The air buzzes with hammers and chisels, dust mixing with the faint, lingering stink that's plagued the city since that infernal summer. But now there's hope in the haze, a promise that the Great Stink's legacy will be progress, not paralysis. You pause by a massive pumping station, rising like a cathedral of iron and stone, its engines humming trials that shake the ground, designed to lift sewage uphill against gravity's pull. Workers swarm the site, faces smeared with grime, hauling bricks by the million to line the tunnels, each one a piece in Bazalgette's puzzle, engineered to last beyond anyone's lifetime. You overhear foremen barking orders, their voices cutting through the din. Deeper here, lads. 8 miles downstream. That's the goal. The plan's audacity stuns you, intercepting sewers, funneling waste away from the center, dumping it at high tide where the current sweeps it to sea, away from drinking wells and crowded banks. Modern aside, think of it as London's first major plumbing upgrade, like swapping a leaky faucet for a smart system that flushes the whole house. Except the house is a metropolis, choking on its refuse. A mainstream historical fact, Joseph Bazalgette's sewer network, completed in the 1860s, spanned 1,100 miles and cost the equivalent of billions today, transforming urban sanitation and preventing future cholera epidemics through innovative brick-lined tunnels and embankments. You watch as embankments take shape along the Thames, massive walls housing the main lines, reclaiming land from the river's muddy grasp, while hiding the pipes that will change everything. The disruption is immense. Streets blocked, homes razed, noise ceaseless from dawn to dusk. But you see the wonder in neighbors' eyes, whispers of cleaner air and safer water spreading like the fog that once carried disease. One worker, pausing for a swig from his flask, nods at you. "This'll fix the stink for good, miss. Bazalgette's a genius, mark my words." You nod back, feeling a spark of awe. After years of enduring the river's wrath, this revolution feels like magic, human hands reshaping the underworld to spare the surface. A quirky tidbit? Bazalgette overbuilt the sewers deliberately, designing them twice the needed size to accommodate future growth. A foresight that still serves London today, handling floods and waste far beyond Victorian dreams. You smile faintly, the dust settling on your lips. Engineering like this is poetry in brick, turning chaos into channels that whisper away the city's secrets. Historians still argue whether Bazalgette's success owed more to political pressure from the Great Stink or his innovative designs, like the egg-shaped tunnels that self-clean with flow, with some crediting the crisis for funding, while others highlight his hydraulic genius. You feel the transformation unfolding, the trenches a temporary scar for lasting healing, as carts haul away the excavated earth, revealing depths where waste once pooled in cesspits now redirected to vast networks. Callbacks to the stink's paralysis, where once you gagged crossing bridges, now the promise of odor-free walks buoys your steps, the river's banks soon to run clearer, free from the sludge that fermented in the sun. You venture closer to a tunnel entrance, the cool draft rising like a breath from below, carrying the scent of fresh mortar rather than decay. A shift that makes your chest lighten, hope blooming amid the rubble. The project's cost weighs on everyone. Taxes hiked, bonds issued, complaints rippling through taverns like the ripples in your morning jug. But you see the value in every laid brick, each one a barrier against the diseases that claimed friends and kin. Wealthy areas connect first, their streets mended swiftly, while your neighborhood waits, the disruption a daily trial of noise and dust that coats everything in a fine grit. Yet, you marvel at the ingenuity, pumping stations with massive beams and boilers, embankments creating new promenades where filth once ruled. Modern sarcasm. If Bazalgette had social media, he'd trend as sewer king. Posts of before and after tunnels, captioned, "From stink to sink." You chat with a displaced family nearby, their children wide-eyed at the machinery, and share a nod of shared endurance. This revolution demands sacrifice, but the payoff, a city that breathes easy, feels within reach. As the sun dips, casting long shadows over the worksite, you head home, the clamor fading behind you like a receding storm. The tenement awaits, its damp walls unchanged, but the air feels charged with possibility. The sewers promise seeping into conversations over supper. Mary enthuses about fewer flies. Tom jokes about swimming in a clean Thames someday. And you listen, the jug's murky water suddenly less daunting knowing change flows beneath your feet. A light joke echoes in your thoughts. Bazalgette's sewers, where London's problems go down the drain, leaving us to marvel at the flush of progress. The evening deepens, lamps flickering in windows, and you lie back, the ground's faint vibrations a lullaby of construction, dreaming of streets without stench, a revolution etched in stone and sweat. The months blur into years, the network expanding like roots under soil, connecting poor alleys last but surely, disease rates dipping as waste vanishes into the depths. You walk the new embankments one crisp morning, the Thames running bluer, its banks strollable without handkerchiefs, and feel gratitude swell. This is Bazalgette's gift, a silent guardian against the horrors you once knew. Another joke. They call it a sewer revolution, but it's more like an underground uprising, waste rebelling against the surface by politely exiting stage left. The city's pulse quickens, healthier, cleaner, your marvel turning to quiet pride as London awakens from its filthy slumber, the engineer's legacy flowing eternally below. Section 13. You push open the tenement door, the hinges groaning like a weary sigh after the day's chaos of construction, echoes fading into twilight, and step into the shared room where the faint rumble of Bazalgette's distant works still vibrates through the walls. As Emma, your stomach growls insistently, a hollow reminder that survival demands more than marveling at sewers. It craves sustenance, however risky the gamble. You set your basket on the table, its scarred wood bearing scars from countless meals, and unpack the meager haul. A chunk of bread hardening at the edges, a sliver of cheese wrapped in cloth, and a bit of salted meat that's seen better days. The room's dim light casts long shadows over your preparations, the air thick with the lingering damp that turns everything soft and suspect. You slice the bread with a dull knife, the crust crackling under pressure, and eye the meat warily. No fridge here to keep it fresh, just the cool corner of the room where you hope the warmth doesn't hasten its turn. You rub salt into the meat's surface, the crystals biting your fingers as you work to preserve what's left, packing it tight in a crock that you've dusted with more from your precious stash. Salt's your ally against spoilage, drawing out moisture like a stern taskmaster, but it leaves the flesh tough and briny, a far cry from tender. If it's fish from the market, you might smoke it over the stove's embers, the haze filling the room with a woody tang that masks any off notes creeping in. You hang a strip now, the makeshift rack swaying gently as the smoke curls up, preserving by drying and flavoring in one hazy go. Modern aside, imagine your fridge's crisp drawer swapped for this. No expiry dates, just a sniff test and crossed fingers, where use by means before it walks away. The process is slow, the heat from the stove warming your face as you fan the flames, careful not to let it burn. A mainstream historical fact: Victorians relied heavily on salting and smoking for preservation, with urban diets often limited to preserved meats that contributed to high sodium intake and related health issues like hypertension among the working class. You turn to the cheese, its rind mottled with spots that could be age or something less benign, and cut away the worst, hoping the rest holds. Without ice boxes, affordable for most, dairy sours fast, turning milk into curds you force into shape, or ignore the lumps in your porridge. You stir a pot now, oats bubbling with water from the jug, that Thames-tainted lifeline, and add a dash of yesterday's milk, its tang sharp but usable, the heat killing what it can. Vegetables, if you have them, get pickled in vinegar jars, submerged in brine that bites back, preserving carrots or cabbage for weeks, but turning them sour and crisp in ways that twist your tongue. You drop a few slices in, the liquid fizzing slightly, and seal it tight. A jar of future meals, if luck holds. A quirky tidbit: some households experimented with burying food in cool earth pits lined with straw, mimicking root cellars in cramped urban spaces, turning backyards into makeshift graves for provisions that emerged either fresh or furry with mold. You chuckle softly, the sound blending with the pot's bubble. Burying dinner, like treasure. X marks the spot where flavor goes to die, or thrive if the gods of rot are kind. Historians still argue whether these preservation hacks extended lifespans by preventing starvation or shortened them through hidden toxins like botulism in poorly smoked meats, with debates centering on whether ingenuity outweighed the risks in pre-refrigeration diets. You feel the gamble in every bite, the bread's staleness a safe bet compared to meat that might twist your guts by morning. Callbacks to the street's filth. That same manure dust from horse piles likely speckles your loaf, baked in ovens fueled by whatever burns, turning meals into unwitting lotteries. You assemble your plate: bread, cheese shaved thin, a pickle's crunch, and chew slowly, the flavors mingling in a symphony of survival, salty, tangy, with an undernote of worry. Modern sarcasm. Victorian eating is like extreme sports for your stomach. High stakes, no safety net, and the thrill of wondering if breakfast bites back. The shared room fills with similar rituals, Mary gnawing on a heel of bread, while Tom spoons porridge that's more water than oat, the O'Briens sharing a pot of stew where mystery chunks float suspiciously. You offer a bite of pickle, the vinegary snap cutting through the bland, and they nod thanks. Communal eating when stores run low, risks shared like the air. If meat's turning green, you spice it heavy with pepper scavenged from market ends, masking the off-taste in a fiery haze that burns your throat but fools the tongue. You sprinkle some now on the cheese, the grains black like tiny secrets, hoping it hides any whisper of spoil. A light joke whispers through your mind, preserving food, Victorian style, where salt's your knight in shining armor, but the dragon of decay always lurks, ready to turn supper into a stomach saga. You swallow carefully, the meal settling uneasily, and think of richer tables, imported spices cloaking rot for the elite, while you make do with basics that stretch but strain. Bread often bulked with sawdust or chalk for weight, bought cheap but digested hard, a gamble where fullness fools but nutrition fails. You break off another piece, the crumb dry but sustaining, and wash it down with tea that's more leaf memory than brew. The pot simmers down, embers glowing, and you clean the knife, wiping it on your apron. No dishwasher's whirl, just elbow grease against the grit. Another joke. Eating here is a risky gamble, like betting on horses, except the stakes are your innards, and the odds favor indigestion over a win. As night deepens, the meal's remnants stored in crocks or wrapped tight. You lie back, stomach full but watchful, listening for any rumble that signals a bad turn. The tenement's sounds fade, snores, a child's whimper, and you reflect on the day's intake, preserved by wit and will, but always teetering on the edge. A third joke. Questionable methods make every meal an adventure. Will it nourish or revolt? Tune in tomorrow for the next episode of Gut Roulette. Sleep tugs gently. The preservations gamble a quiet undercurrent in your dreams, where food flows fresh and fear-free, a luxury beyond the croc's salty grasp. Section 14. You settle into the evening's quiet, the tenement's walls absorbing the last echoes of your meal's gamble, the salted remnants stored away as your body digests the day's risks with a tentative rumble. As Emma, the shared room dims under the flicker of a single candle, its wax pooling like silent tears, and you feel a familiar cramp twist low in your belly. A monthly visitor that arrives without fanfare, demanding attention in a world that offers little grace for such things. You rise slowly, muscles aching from the day's labors, and rummage in your small chest for the rags. Strips of old linen, torn from worn-out shifts and hemmed roughly to serve this purpose, folded and hidden like secrets too intimate for the communal air. The room hums with soft breaths. Mary's even snores. Tom's rustles as he turns. But privacy is a myth here, so you slip behind the thin curtain that divides your corner, a flimsy veil against prying eyes. The rags are soft from repeated use, their edges frayed, and you fold one carefully, positioning it with a practiced hand, the fabric cool against your skin as you secure it with pins that prick if you're not gentle. The flow starts lightly, a warm trickle that soaks into the cloth, and you adjust your skirts, the layers heavy and unforgiving, trapping heat and moisture in a way that makes every movement a reminder. No store-bought pads or tampons here. Those are dreams for a distant future. Instead, it's these rags, washed and reused until they thin to threads, their stains set despite your best scrubs. You sit back on the bed's edge, the straw shifting beneath you, and feel the discomfort build, a dull ache that radiates like whispers through your hips. Modern aside, imagine ditching disposables for this DIY setup. It's like crafting your survival kit, but with laundry as the endless boss level, no save points in sight. The lack of privacy gnaws. In this shared space, any rustle draws glances, and changing the rag means slipping to the privy under cover of night, hoping no one stirs. You do it quietly, bundling the soiled one in a scrap of newspaper to hide the evidence, the metallic scent faint but unmistakable in the close air. Washing comes later, in the courtyard's dim light, or by candle if dawn breaks first. Rinsing in cold water that bites your hands, scrubbing with whatever soap sliver remains, the stains stubborn like memories that won't fade. Hot water sets them, so you endure the chill, knuckles raw as you wring and hang them discreetly, not on the main lines for neighbors to gawk, but in your corner, draped over a chair, where they dry slowly, out of sight, but never out of mind. Wealthier women might afford softer cloths or servants to handle the chore, their privacy bought with coin. But for you, it's solitary labor. The rag's a cycle of use and renewal that mirrors life's unyielding rhythm. A mainstream historical fact: Victorian women managed menstruation with reusable rags or cloths, often without dedicated products, until the late 1800s, leading to widespread discomfort and health issues like infections from infrequent changes in an era of limited hygiene resources. You feel the pinch as you lie back, the rag shifting slightly, and think of the doctor's wild notions, hysteria as the cause, prescribing cold baths or mercury doses that poison more than soothe. You avoid such cures, sticking to rest when you can. But work doesn't pause for cramps, so you push through. The ache, a constant companion, like the tenement's damp. Some fringe remedies float through whispers, raw meat slabs on the abdomen for relief, or butter smeared for moisture. But you stick to rags and resilience, the quirky tidbit of using moss packs for absorbency when cloth runs short, harvested from damp walls and dried in secret, nature's sponge in a pinch. You shift uncomfortably, the bed creaking, and stifle a wince. No privacy means no complaints allowed, just silent endurance as the flow heavies, soaking through if you're not vigilant. A light joke murmurs in your thoughts. Periods in Victorian times, like a monthly uninvited guest who overstays, trashes the place, and leaves you with the cleanup bill, all without a single apology. Historians still argue whether women's hygiene struggles stemmed more from societal taboos that silenced discussion or practical barriers like water scarcity, with some evidence suggesting cultural shame delayed innovations, while others point to economic constraints as the primary hurdle. You feel both in every hushed change, the rags a testament to ingenuity amid indifference, their reuse a gamble against infection in a world where germs lurk unseen. Callbacks to the laundry's grueling scrub. Those same urine-laced suds await these cloths, their stains joining the week's wash in a foul fraternity. Privacy eroded by the communal tub where eyes might wander. You adjust again, the pins holding firm, and blow out the candle, darkness softening the room's edges as you curl up, the cramp pulsing like a distant drum. Modern sarcasm. If apps tracked cycles back then, they'd crash from overload. Day 3, rags low, privacy 0, survival mode engaged. The night deepens, roommate's breath sinking in sleep. But you lie awake, the rag's bulk unfamiliar yet routine, a barrier against leaks that could stain the shared sheets and invite questions. You rise once in the dark, slipping to the privy with a bundle in hand, the courtyard empty under stars that peek through fog, the cold air nipping as you rinse hastily, water from the jug chilling your fingers. Back in bed, fresh rag in place, you exhale slowly, the ache easing slightly with warmth from the blanket. Wealthy tales whisper of belts and bulky pads later invented, but for now, it's rags and resolve, no privacy to grieve the discomfort alone. Another joke. Managing this is like a secret society. Membership mandatory, meetings monthly, and the uniform. Whatever scrap you can salvage without scandal. Dawn creeps in, the room stirring, and you rise first to hide the evidence, folding the soiled rag away for washing, the cycle unbroken like the Thames's flow. The day's work calls, cramps or no, and you straighten your skirts, dignity pieced together from threads and tenacity. A third joke, women's hygiene back then, where that time means time to improvise, innovate, and pray no one notices your stealthy laundry line. You step out, the tenement's rhythm resuming, your struggles silent but shared in the sisterhood of whispers, enduring as the city's slow cleanse below ground promises a fresher tomorrow. Section 15. You lean against the tenement's rough wall, the plaster cool and crumbly under your fingertips as the evening light slants through the window, casting a golden haze over the shared room where shadows dance like whispers of change. As Emma, the day's echoes fade, the clatter of Bazalgette's workers, the faint hum of a city stirring from its filthy slumber, and a quiet optimism blooms in your chest, fragile yet fierce, like the first green shoot pushing through cracked pavement. The sewers snake deeper underground, their completion a distant promise. But already the air feels lighter, the Thames's stench retreating like a defeated foe, leaving space for breath that doesn't catch in your throat. You smooth your skirts, the fabric less heavy with grime, and glance at the jug on the table, its water still murky, but carrying a hint of hope. Reforms are coming, slow as the river's tide, transforming the world one brick, one law, one cleaner breath at a time. The streets outside buzz with talk, neighbors sharing tales of fewer flies, rarer fevers, a future where children play without the shadow of cholera looming like a thief in the fog. You step to the window, the glass fogged with condensation, and trace a finger through it, revealing glimpses of the evolving city, embankments rising sturdy along the river, pumping stations puffing steam like gentle giants, the waste whisked away to horizons beyond your daily wanderings. The Great Stink's memory lingers, a scar on the collective soul, but it's fading, replaced by this burgeoning faith that human hands can mend what neglect has broken. You feel it in your bones, an optimism that lifts the weight of endless rags and risky meals, whispering that your children's world might shine brighter, freer from the damp's clutches and the river's poison. Modern aside, it's like watching a city get a full spa makeover. From sewer sludge to urban glow-up, where hope flows as freely as the redirected waste, proving even the grimiest tales can end on a high note. A mainstream historical fact, the Public Health Act of 1875 built on Bazalgette's work, mandating local authorities to provide clean water and sanitation, drastically reducing death rates from waterborne diseases across Britain. You turn back to the room, where Mary hums a soft tune while mending, her needle flashing in the dim light, and Tom shares a rare smile over his pipe. The tobaccos curl less acrid against the improving air. The reforms ripple outward, factories installing better drains, streets swept more often, public baths opening their doors to the weary like you, offering soaks that were once dreams for the elite. You imagine dipping into one, the water warm and untainted, rinsing away not just dirt, but decades of struggle, your skin emerging renewed like the city itself. Quirky tidbit: some reformers pushed for sanitation gardens, planting flowers over new sewer lines to symbolize rebirth, turning waste conduits into blooming symbols that dotted London's greener edges. A floral fringe on the edge of progress. You chuckle softly, the sound blending with the baby's coo. Optimism in Victorian London, like planting roses in manure, thorny at first, but eventually it blooms into something sweet. Historians still argue whether these sanitation reforms sparked broader social changes, like women's increased roles in public health advocacy, or if they merely patched symptoms without addressing poverty's root causes, with debates centering on whether cleaner streets empowered the working class or simply sustained the status quo. You feel the shift personally, the optimism weaving through your routines. Hair rinses less burdened by soot, teeth scrubbed with less fear of ache, undergarments changed more freely as water flows purer from communal pumps. Callbacks to the great Styx grip, where once you fled the river's assault, now you stroll its banks, the embankments a walkway of wonder, the Thames murmuring cleaner secrets as fish flicker in depths once dead. You gather the rags for tomorrow's wash, their weight lighter in spirit if not in hand, and fold them away, the monthly cycle less a curse amid the city's cleansing tide. The tenement feels transformed too, its damp walls drying under stricter bylaws, mould retreating like shadows before dawn. The shared privy emptied more promptly by regulated night soil men whose carts rumble with purpose. You light the candle, its flame steady, and prepare a simple supper: bread softened with tea, cheese less risky in the cooler air, and eat slowly, savoring the subtle freshness that hints at more to come. Neighbors chat over their meals, voices laced with excitement. Heard the Queen herself praise the sewers, says London's reborn. You nod, optimism swelling like the river at high tide, carrying away doubts in its current. Modern sarcasm: if hope were a currency, you'd be minted in gold now, trading stink for sparkle, where reforms turn "what if" into "watch this." The meal done, you blow out the flame, darkness soft as velvet, and lie back, the mattress less prickly, dreams drifting toward a horizon where hygiene isn't a battle, but a birthright. As night deepens, the city's sounds soften, carts fewer, cries distant, and you feel Emma's world expanding, reforms knitting the fabric of daily life into something stronger, brighter. Public health officers patrol, enforcing cleanliness that once was a whim, and schools teach children to wash hands, boil water, habits that will outlive you. You shift under the blanket, the rags secure, and breathe deeply, the air carrying less coal, less waste, more promise. A light joke flickers in the quiet. Sanitation reforms, like a citywide detox, flushing out the bad vibes and leaving room for that fresh start glow. No kale smoothies required. The optimism anchors you, a quiet force against the remnants of old struggles, as stars peek through the fog outside, twinkling like beacons of the cleaner dawn awaiting. You close your eyes, the room's rhythm lulling, breath sinking, a child's soft sigh, and let hope cradle you, the reform's legacy a warm embrace in the cool night. Tomorrow's pump will run clearer, streets less foul, your steps lighter in a world remade by will and wit. Another joke, feeling optimistic in changing London, like winning the hygiene lottery, where the prize is not smelling like yesterday's news. The transformation feels real, tangible as the embankment stone, and you drift toward sleep, Emma's spirit buoyed by the tide of progress that lifts all, one reformed breath at a time. A third joke, reforms turning hope into reality, like upgrading from economy to first class on the Sanitation Express, with complimentary fresh air and no turbulence from the stink. The night enfolds you, optimism a gentle current carrying you forward, the city's cleaner future a dream within reach. You let the day's weight slip away, muscles softening into the mattress as if melting like wax from that spent candle. The room's quiet hum wrapping around you like a familiar shawl. The tenement's walls seem less confining now, their dampness retreating under the promise of drier tomorrows, and you breathe more slowly, more deeply, each inhale drawing in the subtle shift, the air cleaner, the Thames's murmur gentler through the cracked window. Emma's world fades softly, its struggles dissolving into the night's embrace, leaving only gratitude for the small victories, a rag that stains less, water that tastes truer, hope that blooms unchecked. Your eyelids grow heavy, lashes brushing cheeks as thoughts lengthen, stretching like shadows at dusk, reassuring you that progress, once sparked, flows onward, carrying away the old burdens on its steady current. The shared breaths of roommates blend into a soothing rhythm, a lullaby of lives intertwined yet lightened, and you sink deeper, your body releasing tension in waves from your toes curling softly to your shoulders, dropping their guard. The city's distant pulse slows to a whisper, reforms weaving peace into the fabric of sleep, where dreams unfold gently, unhurried, painting futures bright and unsoiled. Let go now, drifting on this calm tide, safe in the knowledge that tomorrow holds fresher dawns, cleaner paths, endless possibility. Rest easy, wrapped in comfort's arms, as the world outside renews itself, one quiet breath at a time.